Thanks for joining us. Before I introduce today's poets, I want to acknowledge the people who make this poetry show happen. Thank you, Jennifer Clymer, Director, Executive Producer, MPTF Studios. Thank you, Jenny Esquivel, Marcus, Murrietta, Kak Lee, Jeff Mercer, Allegra Leedom, Amy Wieseneck, Paige Thompson. Thank you all for your fabulous work. And one last thing that I've said before, I always want to thank Jennifer Clymer and Bob Beecher for their loving support of the creative. Jack Grapes is an award-winning poet, playwright, actor, teacher, editor, and publisher. His most recent book of poetry is Last of the Outsiders, Collected Poems 1968 to 2019, published by Chatwin Books. His play, Circle of Will, ran for several years in Hollywood and won Drama Critics Awards for Best Comedy and Best Performance by an Actor. He was founder, editor, and publisher of the literary journal On the Bus, which published over 2,000 poets since 1989. Among his nonfiction books are Method Acting and Advanced Method Writing, which form the core of his writing classes that he has been teaching since 1971. His other nonfiction books are How to Read Like a Writer and Etherized Upon a Table, a 2-volume history of modern poetry since Homer. He is currently writing a book on James Joyce and his novel Ulysses titled Yes, I Said, Yes, I Will, Yes. Jack Grapes' poetry has warmth, humor, erudition, eloquence, and accessibility. It's personal and transcendent. Here's a brilliant poet, Jack Grapes.
Okay, so I'm starting off. All the poems I'm going to read are from that book, Last of the Outsiders, but I will read from the individual books that make up Last of the Outsiders. So my first poem comes from a book called Any Style, and that's me dancing with Rita Hayworth, as you can see. This poem is called Gulf of Mexico. My father liked being on a boat in the Gulf of Mexico, anchored near one of the oil rigs, pulling up spadefish and red snapper and swigging from a bottle of Jim Beam. Fried chicken, ham sandwiches, burgers from Bud's Broiler, the bagels and lox my father brought, and who knows what else he and the men ate with their beers. The boat was slimy with fish, blood, the men bare-chested, yelling out instructions as the fish dangled from their lines. The one time I went with him, I was 10 years old, and all I could think about was, would he be able to drive the car all the way home? Would he end up falling down drunk as we walked to the car, carrying the ice chest full of the day's catch? But now when I think back on it, God, he must have had a good time. I'm so glad my father had a good time. These men were not Jewish. They were his drinking buddies from AA. They all had that Gentile, good old boy razzmatazz, rednecks for sure, slapping their hands together and howling at the midday sun. My father, who never finished 8th grade, who read Kant and Hegel and Lenin and Marx, God, he must have had a good time. I'm so glad my father had a good time. Maybe it brought back the days of summer on the Lower East Side during the Great Depression, when he was in his early 30s, without a job, without a home, a man riding the rails like Jack Dempsey. And like Dempsey, he fought in the ring for chump change so he could rent a room for the night. I want my father to have a good time. I want my father to taste the salt of his life, to carouse with the men and spend the night with a woman he met in a bar, to come home with no money in his pockets, just the matchbooks we found from Gentillage's Bar and Grill on Rampart Street or the Econo Lodge Motel a mile from the airport. Oh, live it up, Dad. Hook those fish. spray that Jim Beam all over your face, guzzle it down and stagger back to the shed where the fish are gutted and puke your guts out in the parking lot and drive down the airline highway, turn right on Carrollton Avenue, past Borden's ice cream parlor, past Jim's fried chicken, past Ping Pang Pung's Chinese restaurant, then a left on Fontainebleau Drive, then slam into the driveway of that two-story brick colonial home you bought, selling eyeglasses to the country folk from Houma and Gretna and Bogalusa. Then fling open the front door and charge up the stairs to the bathroom and slam the medicine chest cabinet to smithereens, to this life, to this fishing trip on the Gulf of Mexico, where you're finally and irrevocably free. This next poem is in my selected poems, The Naked Eye, and all these books are available on Amazon. My first wife had a picture of me when I was in kindergarten, and she's since lost it, so I've tried to recreate that picture in this poem. If you'll notice, the lines are very thin because I've tried to get to the breath line of the 5-year-old talking, which halted and breathless almost. The picture. I am 5, but that's not me in the picture. That's someone else who looks like me, but isn't me. I'm behind him, telling him what to do with his mouth so he'll look like me to someone who does not know me. If you know me, you know I look completely different, with my mouth shut tight and my eyes wide open, and both hands covering up my ears so I won't hear a thing or say what I see when I see so much. And I'm 5. Not even that yet. Not until September 11th. Then I'll be 5. Imagine when I'm 10. And a friend of mine from South America, he wrote music to it and put it on an album of his. So I'm going to sing it the way he wrote it. I am 5, but that's not me in the picture. That's someone else who looks like me, but isn't me. I'm behind him, telling him what to do with his mouth so he'll look like me to someone who doesn't know me. I am 5. But that's not me in the picture. That's someone else who looks like me, but isn't me. If you know me, you know I look completely different, with mouth shut, eyes wide open, and both hands covering up my ears, so I won't hear a thing or say what I see when I see so much. And I'm 5, not even that yet, not until September 11th, then I'll be 5. Imagine when I am 10, imagine when I am 10. This is from a limited edition chapbook that only had 50 copies, so it's kind of rare. But it's got my paintings and my drawings in it. And it's called Save the Date. This poem is called Ink. And it's on page 17. Here we go. And here's another one of the pictures in it. And it's got writing on it. You can, you know. This is called Ink. Jack is in Mrs. Ames' 4th grade class, and he sits in the back row and looks out the window and never pays any attention in class and plans to be a writer someday. He likes writing poetry, but might write books someday. Writing means you don't have to go to work like everybody else. You can sit in your room and look out the window when you feel like it and write all day long if you feel like it. Right now, he writes with a pencil. But Mrs. Ames said next year, everyone will learn to use a fountain pen. If you don't put the ink in the right way, or if you don't keep the pen closed tight, you could get ink on your fingers. Jack plans to get ink on his fingers. This is how you know someone is a writer. They have ink on their fingers. Or maybe they print counterfeit money. Sometimes it's hard to tell. But crooks who print counterfeit money wash off all the ink as soon as they finish printing the money. A writer keeps the ink on his fingers for days, sometimes for years. Jack plans to keep ink on his fingers forever. If a person tells you they are a writer and they don't have ink on their fingers, they're probably not writers. They're probably lying to you. Or maybe they've got writer's block. There are no doctors for writer's block. You just have to walk around and look at everything and listen to what people are saying, if they are sad or happy, and you think to yourself, maybe I could write about that. But when you get back to your room and you open your loose leaf binder where you write all your poems and stories, you can't write. You're blocked. That's why they call it writer's block. But Jack is not going to get writer's block. If he doesn't feel like writing, he won't write. And if he feels like writing, he'll write down the first stuff that pops into his head, even if it's about that ant that's crawling across his desk. There are no other ants in the whole classroom. Where did this one ant come from? He will write about that before he even thinks about it. If he thinks about it, he will get writer's block. You have to be very careful about writer's block. It's like when someone has a cold and they sneeze in your face, and suddenly you're sick as a dog. Thinking is like a big sneeze full of writer's block germs. Thinking is not all it's cracked up to be. People who think too much are called philosophers. I mean, look what happened to Copernicus. Jack learned about him in 4th grade. Mrs. Ames said he was very sad because he couldn't tell people what he knew about the earth and the sun, or they would torture him. So he kept his mouth shut. That's what he gets for being a philosopher. Better to be a poet or a writer. Just don't think. Open your mouth and say it while you're writing it down on a piece of paper with an ink pen, and get as much ink on your fingers as you possibly can so people will know you're not a philosopher, you're a writer, a poet. Next year, Jack will be in Mrs. Sturtz's 5th grade class. She lets you draw pictures, too, that go with what you're writing. You can draw the pictures first and then write, or you can write and then draw the pictures. You can even put words on the pictures. Is it a painting or a poem? Confuse people is Jack's motto. Let them do the thinking, just as long as you don't get bitten with that writer's block thing that's going around. They get all sorts of stuff in the drugstore for colds and flu, but nothing for writer's block. Once you get it, it can last a long time, maybe forever. So watch out who you sit next to. But Jack doesn't plan to sit next to O.J. Bordelon or Albert Blaylock. They've got writer's block. He plans to sit next to Oriole McEnroth. She's a Christian Scientist. When she falls, she doesn't put a Band-Aid on her knee. But she likes to write. She's always writing and looking out the window. I'll marry Oriole McEnroth, Jack mumbles under his breath, and we'll write all day long and never get writer's block. And she's pretty. Dark hair and big eyes wide open like she just discovered something new. Whenever he sees her, he wants to say, "What?" She looks at him and says, "What? And he says, "Just what?" And this goes on, back and forth for a long time. So that's how it'll be. We'll live together, write together, and walk around the house saying, "What? What?" to each other. Jack plans to sit next to her. He's got to sit next to Oriole McEnroth and write whatever he feels like writing and make paintings with words in them. And most of all, best of all, he'll get ink all over his fingers. That's how you'll know he's a writer. I get a kick out of that poem, I have to tell you. This is from The Naked Eye, and it's called The Man in Charge of Watering. Here we go. How are we doing so far? This is fun. I've never done this before. It's weird. All right, the man in charge of watering. The summer sun, strong and bright, sits down on the bricks in the front yard. Cars which have nothing to do with bricks go by on the street heading home. It's Wednesday afternoon, middle of the week, when you can put everything you've planned on Monday back on the back burner. A lady goes by. I nod and smile and say hello. She's carrying a bag of groceries. I think she lives down the block. I should go back inside. The sun's hot on my face and I'm not wearing my hat. Lori admonishes me, don't forget to wear your hat. I came outside to fill the fountain and forgot to wear my hat. Now I'm just standing here, looking around, saying hello to the neighbors as they pass. When we first bought this house, when Josh was only 2 years old, I used to go outside after the sun had gone down and hose the grass on the front and side lawn. Such a peaceful time it was, and the back spray from the hose cooled everything down. I was Mr. Homeowner, watering his lawn. There are flowers blooming here that Lori knows the names of, but I can't seem to remember their names at all. Jasmine, bougainvillea, true geraniums. I can't keep track of them all. I've tried, but the names elude me. Even the grass has a name, but I've forgotten that too. This is what heaven will be like. Anytime I want, I'll be able to water the lawn. All my friends will walk by, I'll nod, say hello, watch them pass along going wherever people go in heaven. I won't have to do anything but water the lawn. And the water. Oh, you should see the water in heaven. Crystal clear, light as a feather, so to speak, diamonds of light. The back spray will cool my face and head, and the grass. Oh, you'd think grass in heaven wouldn't need watering, but you're in for quite a surprise. Everything up here needs watering. Even the bricks that sit in the sun getting hot. Even God, who soaks up all our prayers. Even God will need a spray or two to cool down. So I'll be the waterer. The man in charge of watering everything and everyone. The man spraying water in heaven. That'll be my job. When God comes by and asks how I'm doing, I'll say, fine, just fine. Then I'll turn and ask, need a little watering? And God will nod, say, sure, soak me down. Just don't wet the groceries. And I'll give God a real good spray. That'll be my job. The man in charge of watering God. This poem is from a little book. It's kind of little, see? It's little. The further back it gets littler. It's a little book, and I don't know, I just wanted to do a little book with little poems. And this poem is about my dog, Jessie, who died. We had to put her down a few years ago. And I really miss her. So this is called Jessie, my dog. I was driving back from a music recital this evening and found myself cruising down the street I used to frequent 30 years ago, but haven't driven down since. So many of the places I used to go to are gone. A favorite Italian restaurant, now a fitness center. A bookstore, now an antique store. A cafe where I read most of 100 Years of Solitude. Now it's an ice cream parlor. It isn't as if I was planning to go to any of those places, but it makes me sad to know they're gone. And it doesn't really matter. I'm 72 years old. A lot is gone. It's all going to go eventually. By the cafe, a boy was walking his dog along the sidewalk. One day the boy will be gone, along with his dog. My dog is gone. Jessie used to lie by my feet as I sat at the computer trying to write a poem. She's gone now. No more Jessie. After I'd written the poem, I'd take Jessie out for her midnight walk. Sometimes we'd pass a house and the people inside might still be up, sitting at the table, talking and drinking. But mostly the streets were quiet, and she and I would enjoy the night air, the way the leaves rustled when the wind came up from the ocean. Maybe a poem would be buried in someone's front yard, and Jessie would dig it up and bring it to me, like a bone she'd just found. That poem about the man in charge of watering, Jessie dug that one up, just dug it up and brought it to me. What you got there, girl? She dropped it on the sidewalk, then trotted off, looking for more poems, more bones. No more bones now, and few poems to be dug up except this one, which is torn at the edges, and I've stopped caring about the line breaks or the metaphors, or even doing the kind of things a poet is supposed to do when writing a poem, making everything shipshape. No more bones, no more shipshape. I'm not even sure you're reading this poem right now. Maybe no one is reading it. Like I said earlier, it doesn't matter, you know? I write the poems anyway. Jessie will come back some night, take my poems on our walk, and bury them in someone's front yard. And all I'll have to do in my remaining years is to walk my weary bones down the sidewalk and just dig them up. Dig up all those poems that Jessie buried. My good girl, dog. Taking such good care of me, then and now. Jessie won't be with me, but I'll thank her, give her a good rub on the back, and then I'll let her go. I had a couple of more poems to read, but I think my 25 minutes are up.
Why don't you read one more poem, Jack?
Okay, this is, okay, one more. This is also from that book, Any Style, where I'm dancing with Rita Hayworth. And it's got an inscription, an epigraph from Peter, Paul, and Mary. Lord, I'm 500 miles from home. You can hear the whistle blow 100 miles. And this is the poem. Driving west out of El Paso, the sun coming up behind me, I look for a diner or roadside cafe off the main highway. Maybe I'll just follow those dust clouds that cars coming the other way leave in their wake. Maybe it'll be just a scratched Formica counter and a waitress wearing jeans and a T-shirt. Eggs, any style, I tell her, waiting to see if she gets it, the joke, I mean. But she doesn't. Anything on the side, she asks. Yeah, I say, studying the menu as if it were that calculus final I barely passed. Yeah, give me the bacon, the hash browns. You got grits? I look up from the menu and admire her frontage. After 7 hours driving in the dark, then heaving away from the sun, the mouth waters for the old breakfast roadside standbys, toast, butter, greasy bacon and eggs, and frontage. The urge rises from my toes, through my stomach and into my chest, the urge to reach out and touch them, those well-fed breasts inside that hefty bra, inside that white T-shirt. Yeah, she says, moving the eraser of the pencil back and forth behind her ear, we got grits. I'm up for grits, I say, making the word grits sound like I'd already eaten a mouthful. She shifts her weight from one leg to the other, writes on the pad, then says it. What I came in here for in the first place, not for the food, but to hear her say those words. 3 eggs, any style, side of bacon, side of hash browns, side of grits. I almost swoon. I almost lean across the counter and place my head between her breasts, almost blurt out that I love her, that I've been loving her all night long, loving her as I drove through the darkness on this 2-lane highway filled with nothing but tractor trailers and 18-wheelers and tank trucks and boom trucks and freight liners and box vans, 2-ton stake trucks and Scammell ballast tractors, not to mention the flatbeds and the pickups all heading west, just like me. I want to tell her that I love her right now, here in this diner, 30 miles west of El Paso, and will always love her to my dying day, love her any style, side of bacon, side of hash browns, side of grits, but I don't. The sun's already breaking the water glasses on the counter, rousting the silverware, dashing the flies to the floor where they languish in the heat. 500 miles to go before I hit LA, before I take the big curve where the I-10 turns north under the overpass and heads up the Pacific Coast Highway, white beaches to my left, brown cliffs to my right. 500 miles to go. Yeah, I say, that should do it. And give me an order of wheat toast, butter, jelly, jam, marmalade with those little pieces of citrus fruit and rind, and coffee, thick black coffee, coffee that's been sitting in the pot for days. Just bring the whole pot, and sugar, lots of sugar, and cream, lots of cream. Then she sticks the pencil in her hair behind her ear and looks at me finally. Mr. Poet, she says, smiling as the sun begins to creep up across her face. Yep, I say, relaxing onto the stool and putting both elbows on the counter. I'm Mr. Poet, and I got lots of poems, any style you want. Side of bacon, side of hash browns, side of grits.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you for the elegant, poignant, harmonious, loving reading. You are the waterer. Thank you for blessing MPTF with that fabulous reading.
Thank you for having me.
Our next reader is Alexis Rhone Fancher. Alexis Rhone Fancher is published in Best American Poetry, Rattle, Poetry East, Hobart, Verse Daily, American Journal of Poetry, Duende, SWWIM, Plume, Diode, Pedestal Magazine, Wide Awake Poets of Los Angeles, and elsewhere. She's authored 5 published poetry collections, most recently Junkie Wife, Moontide Press 2018, and the Dead Kid Poems, KYSO Flash Press 2019, Erotic, new and selected from New York Quarterly, and another full-length collection in Italian by Edizioni Ensemble Italia will both be published in early 2021. Her photographs, or marvelous photographs, I would add, are published worldwide, including River Styx and the covers of Pithead Chapel, Heyday, and Witness. A multiple Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net nominee, Alexis is poetry editor of Cultural Weekly. Alexis Rhone Fancher writes elegiac poetry that has depth. Her book on the death of her son moved me deeply. Her poems are also sensuous and loving. Vision and precision are inherent in her work. Here's a superlative poet, Alexis Rhone Fancher.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Jen, for having me. And Jack, everything I am is because of you. Truly. Jack was my first and only teacher and me everything I know. It's kind of funny. I grew up in Topanga Canyon, Woodland Hills, and when I was a girl of 10, I rounded up some of my friends and we went to the Motion Picture Country Hospital to entertain the residents. And we would sing songs and do little skits, and the people were so kind, and they'd give us Hershey chocolate, and it's just nice to be back and maybe entertain you a little bit today. I'm going to start with, it's kind of funny, Jack ended with a dinner poem, and I'm going to begin with one, purely by accident. This is from my third book. I don't know if it's working or not, but it's called Enter Here. The poem is for the sad waitress at the diner in Barstow. Beyond the kitchen swinging door, beyond the order wheel and the pass-through piled high with bacon, hash browns, biscuits, and gravy, past the radio tuned to 101.5 FM, all country all the time. Past the truckers overwhelming the counter, grab ass and longing. In the middle of the morning rush, you'll catch her in a wilted pink uniform coffee pot fused in her grip, staring over the top of your head. You follow her gaze out the fly-specked plate glass windows, past the parking lot. She eyes those 16-wheelers barreling down the highway, their mud guards adorned with chrome silhouettes of naked women who look nothing like her. The cruel sun throws her inert her face. This is what regret looks like. Maybe she's searching for that hot day in August when she first walked away from you. There's a choking sound a semi makes when it pulls off the highway, that downshift, a death rattle she's never gotten used to. Maybe she's looking for a way back. Maybe she's ready to come home. But for now, she's lost herself between the register and the door, the endless business from table to kitchen. She's as much left over as those sunny side eggs hardening on your plate.
Wow, those are bookend poems, Alexis.
I know, and it's
really interesting. Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
This is something brand new. I wrote it on a Wednesday, polished it on a Thursday, sent it to Rap on Friday, and it was published on Monday. So this was from Poets to Respond, and sometimes cool stuff happens. It's called Roadkill San Pedro. Oh, and everything in Poets Respond has to be about something that happened that previous week. And all the details of this were taken from Next Door San Pedro, which is a news source, I guess. Roadkill San Pedro. Yesterday, a black cat's severed head was found in my neighbor's driveway, just the head. Halloween's around the corner, my lover says, like that explains everything. I think it might be coyotes, but she says no. Finding just the head is indicative of ritual sacrifice. If the coyotes got him, she assures me, they'd leave more behind. My lover is reading a book about humans as predators who invade a territory, deplete resources, infect its inhabitants, and then move on, do it all again. She says it's science fiction. I say there's nothing fictional about it. Honestly, I don't know why we're still together, except for sex. How she knows exactly where to touch me, how I cannot get enough of her mouth. If we could just stay naked, I tell her, we might have a shot. The neighbor's new baby cries and cries. Today, for 30 minutes, I timed it in case something happens and the detectives come calling. You're a born rescuer, my lover says. I think that means she loves me. There's a kitten, I tell her, inside a drain pipe on the corner of 5th and Nelson in front of the ILW Local 63. I tell her, when I mention I want to rescue him, name him Piper, she snaps. Are you going to change the litter box? Each day we spat over trifles, Wertmüller or Pasolini, smooth or crunchy, reggae or ska. She thinks we blow our savings, fly Patagonia like Chatwin, transverse South America. I think we should write our will, choose a cemetery, spend that money on a double wide. We aren't getting any younger. I want things settled, tidy. She won't budge. I hope to God I die first, I tell her. Leave you with all the chaos. Don't be naive, she says. There is a God. Okay, this one comes from my chapbook, Divorce Barbie, the name of the poem, the chapbook is Junkie Wife. I don't think that's coming very clearly, but Divorce Court Barbie. Ken drives away with all my things. I was no fairy tale bride, but I came with a Barbie daybed, a bath fun playset, and a large pink Desire Barbie dildo vibrator for when Ken forgot to come home. But he couldn't keep it in his Ken fashionista trousers. He parked his glam convertible with silver rims in Skipper's driveway, stashed his GPS in her long and short of it pants. Then he drove out of her dinner date and back to our Barbie dream house to my store it all carrying case and dropped me off at the Barbie Grand Hotel like I was so much Euro cash. Look, honor, no came with warranty, but unlike Ken, my intentions were pure. I lived up to my good housekeeping seal. The Barbie and Ken have sex before marriage playset made sure Ken knew what he was getting into. Then he got into Skipper. I know what you must think. Your Honor, there are names for dolls like me. Bad Barbie, throw away Barbie, the one Ken swears he wouldn't love if I were the last girl on earth, Barbie. The one who's rendered worthless once you trash the box. Okay, this one is called Marriage in the Backyard. I'm sorry, Midnight in the Backyard of Lust and Longing. The Sophists are at it again. Screw yous ricochet off our common walls, invectives, and mind my window. You cheating bitch, like clockwork, this drunken Friday night climax to their ceaseless lovers' quarrel. I'll kill you, I hear the big one growl, and then the smash plate, the screams. By the time the cops arrive, it's a full-out brawl. The two women spilling from their back door, tussling across the no man's land between their backyard and mine. Worse than animals. This time it's Holly, the younger one, dragged to the patrol car, yellow hair wild, small hands cuffed behind her back, kicking at the cop in those Daisy Dukes, an army jacket wafting her silhouette. Clothes than she had on the last time the cops rolled up, or the time before. It's almost dawn, and the trees shiver in the fog. Raccoons slink the tall grass. Marie, Holly's better half, paces the yard in a blue bathrobe and slippers, smoking a cigarette, sobbing as cops jam her lover into their car. Watch your head, she cries and flings herself across the lawn, lunges for Holly through the baby, baby, she sobs. The reason for their discord forgotten. Holly mouths a sloppy kiss. Marie opens her robe, presses herself against the glass. Can you believe it? I would give anything to be loved like that. Okay, this one has an epigraph from Rita Dove's Canary. It's, if you can't be free, be a mystery. She says stalker, he says fan. She's a singed torch, a broken cord, the slip between at the door. She's that long stretch of longing, riding shotgun from nowhere to LA, a bottle of Jack Daniels snug between her thighs, always some fresh loser at the wheel. She's the Zippo in your darkness, a glimmer of goddess in your God-forsaken life. Her voice a rasp, a whiskey-tinged caress. She gets you, and you know the words to all her songs. Follow her from dive bar to third-rate club, clapping too loudly, making sure she makes it home. She's as luckless in love as you are, star-crossed the pair of you in your dreams. If only we could choose who we love. Tonight, the bartender pours your obsession one on the house, dims the lights in the half-empty room as she walks on stage, defenseless, but for that 0018 Wood Martin, she curls in her lap like a child. If you ask her nicely, she'll end with the song you request night after night about the perils of unrequited love. You'll put out your worship into her deaf ear. Her fingers strum your forearm and her nails break your skin. Give the lady whatever she wants, you'll tell the barkeep. Like that's even possible. This is something new, just published a very odd new literary magazine called The Night Heron Barks. It's called We Carry Our Identity on Our Fingertips. When you think they're not looking, you bring your fingers, your nose. We carry our identity on our fingertips, you say. Pattern recognition, all those whorls and arches. I'd know anywhere be your ridges and loops, how fiercely they grip and throttle. Tonight I slice the garlic, season the roast, rub cinnamon, brown sugar, pepper, salt into the meat. Sear it evenly on all 8 sides. When I bring my fingers to my nostrils, I smell dinner. When I bring them to yours, you smell love. I watch you scrape those tasty bits from the bottom of the pot, deglazed with beef broth and merlot. We tie the rosemary sprigs with twine, flour them above nascent gravy, chop onions, the crown on top. You set the timer for 70 minutes, program the Instant Pot for quick feasts. Meanwhile, in the bedroom, we've got time. You school me in the efficacy of facial recognition, palm prints, iris ID, of your body all over mine, finger my flesh, program meat for quick release. All right, one more sexy one here before we get serious. This will be in my new book, which will be published in 2022, again by New York Quarterly, who's championing me these days. Power play. When my lover tells me I cannot say no and I protest, she parts my legs, says, yes, baby, yes. But I'm told. No becomes a foreign country. I take it as permission, open season. So when the waiter asks me if there'll be anything else, I peruse his menu. I'm stuffed, but I say yes, cram my mouth with macaroons and chocolate. And when the Lyft driver seduces me in the rear view, eyes me like prey, asks, may I kiss you? I say yes. And when the long-legged woman I've long lusted after at the gym wonders aloud if I'm single, asks me to dinner and a movie, I say yes. And when she invites me into her bed, what can I say but yes, yes, yes. And when my fan in Scotia begged me to be his muse, to sanction an explicit ode to my breasts, my ankles, my lower lip, a poem he'd never show his wife, I cannot say no to his lust and delusion. Now he wants to climb me, sublime me, shoot me full of stars. Is this what you want too? He writes, and I answer, yes. And when I return to my lover at last, and she sinks into the heady dampness between my thighs, looks at me and asks, "Have you been faithful?" I say, "Yes." This is a very odd poem that I wrote when I was feeling a bit lost and envious. It's in my most recent book, and it is called The Dead Kid Poems. I don't know if you can see that. I hope. Anyway, this one, it's called Cruel Choices. When my husband's 2 grown daughters are in town, the 3 of them go to the movies or play pool, share dinner every night, stay out late. I haven't seen my stepdaughters since my son's funeral in 2007. When people ask, I say nice things about the girls as if we had a relationship. When people ask if I have children, I change the subject, or I lie and say no. Or sometimes I put them on the spot and tell them, yes, but he died. They look aghast and want to know what happened. Then I have to tell them about the cancer. Sometimes when the older daughter, his favorite, is in town and she and my husband are out together night after night, I wonder what it would be like if that was me and my boy, if life was fair, and other than my husband having 2 children and I none, we each had 1 living child, his choice which one to keep. Lately, when people ask, I want to lie and say, yes, my son is a basketball coach. He married a beautiful Iranian model with kind eyes, and they live in London with their twin girls who visit every summer. The same twins, his girlfriend aborted with my blessing when my son was 18, deemed too young for fatherhood, and everyone said there would be all the time in the world. How am I doing on time, Harry?
You're doing good. It's about 5 minutes more.
5 minutes more? Okay.
That was a beautiful poem, Alexis.
Thank you.
Really touching.
Thank you. Hard to write. Let's lighten things up here and get back to some more fun stuff. Cousin Elaine from Chicago and I are naked. In the space between taking off our clothes and putting on our swimsuits, we stand naked. My chest is flat as a board. Her curves are already legendary, her breasts bursting from her bikini. I want to run my fingers along the goose-bumped perimeter, lick the chocolate tips. I'm 12 and shouldn't think this way. I shouldn't think about her tanned legs thrown over me on the couch, nights when we watch TV. Shouldn't think about the damp between my thighs. She bunks with me at night when dreams of following her back to Chicago consume my sleep. In the pool, he's a silver fish. My body's a seeking missile. Marco, she calls from the deep end, her eyes shut tight. I whisper in her shell ear. When I reach for her, she does not pull away. When she kisses me, open mouthed, I pull the string on her bikini, free her breasts, bury my lips between them. When I speak of this day in our far-off future, she'll say it never happened, swear it was all a dream. But I know better. All right, I have 2 more. This one is called The God for Broken People, and it has an epigraph as well. There is a God for broken people, and gay. This is the God for the second rate. The one who lays you at the party, plies you with bourbon, fucks you in the kitchen, makes you walk home in the rain. This God shines in the runoff. This God hustles the night. This God minds the maimed, culls emotional cripples off the top like cream. This God is a shape shifter, a dumpster diver, the God who loiters at the corner of Dolorosa and despair. This God drinks alone. The God for broken people trolls the city for discards, marries the exploited with the lost. The God for broken people trolls the city for discards, marries the exploited with the lost. This God sweeps up the miscreants, gusts their darkness into night. This is the God of no hope, no money. This God has your back when you backslide. This God bets on you to fail, hides in your broken places. This God is willing to wait. When you're ready to surrender, remember, this is your last best chance. This God will not stick by you, won't give you false hope. This God will kill you or save you. Choose. And I'm going to end with a very risque poem that my husband dared me to read. You can always cut it because it's at the end. It's called Porn on the 4th of July. I like a man who can keep the party going, I say, nodding my head in sync with the actor's white ass as it pumps up and down. We're watching French porn again, making fun of the way they use spit instead of lube. French lube, we joke, unable to look away at the well as the well-hung man hucks a loogie into an actress's lady parts. Aside from that, I like the French, the men who stay hard for hours, the women who murmur, oui, 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 with every like they can't get enough. Outside, too, it's steamy. The windows open to the sultry air. The night is rife with holiday pandemonium, and we can see the fireworks from here, golden chrysanthemums, shriek rosettes, and diadems bursting. The neighborhood dogs staccato their nonstop howl, and when my lover ignites me, I join them in a high-pitched chorus. Each day my love finds new porn to tempt me. He knows what I like. Twosomes or threesomes, no tattoo, no bondage, brutality, or handcuffs. Last week, he introduced me to Japanese retro porn. How the schoolgirl giggles behind her hand when the stranger lifts her skirt. Salarymen surrounding the fornicating couple, oblivious. You're a fool for love, my lover says, and I say, oui. Outside, too, they're reaching the finale. Cherry bombs scar the dark. Oh, that's us, going off like Roman candles, wailing louder than the dogs.
Oui, oui.
Alexis,
I thought you would like that one, Jack.
thank you, Alexis, for blessing us with your realistic, vivid, captivating poetry. Thank you both, Jack and Alexis. Happy holidays to you. It's been a wonderful reading, and we're glad to see you and glad to have you share our company here. So thank you once again, and back to Jennifer Clymer.
Before you
Thank you, Harry.
go, thank you both for joining Harry. I want to say, as we wrap up, this is the last of Harry's Poetry Hour for 2020. He will be back with such a force of new guests and previous guests. I hope that you guys will join us again in the new year. And the joy that you have brought, the education that you have brought us, Harry, it's just beyond words. And I'm so grateful for the fact that you took this task up, that you've produced this show with limited support from us. This truly is your hour, and you grace us with the most incredible, moving pieces. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And actually, the thanks goes to, poets such as Jack and Alexis and you for your loving support. So thank you once again, and adios, amigos.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Jennifer.
Bye.
Merry
Thank you,
Christmas. Happy New Year.
guys.